Welcome to Mrs. G's Sewing Space. I'm glad you're joining us today. We are finishing up the dress that has been in the last couple of videos with reversible applique. This is a quick design that my daughter and I came up with. She doesn't like florals, so we came with a geometric design of triangles. That's the original design, but as we progress, things change just a little bit. So we're going to get started on our triangles. So here I am right now, just pinning my teal fabric, which I believe was actually a lining kind of fabric, against a white jersey, which is more of a t-shirt fabric, because the teal fabric was thin and it needed a little more stability to it. It was also see-through, so it needed to be a bit more modest. For new people who are checking out this video, welcome. I'm glad you're here, and I hope you find information that perks your interest. Leave comments down below if you have any questions, comments, or just any ideas of anything that you want to see, and I'm glad that you're here with us today. You can see I'm using the scissors and my rotary cutter just because my pattern or my fabric was off the edge of my cutting board. Rotary cutters are awesome, and that's why, because they're so fast. I have taken the pieces, the teal and the white. I have stitched them together using a long running stitch on the edges and the waist. That way I can work with the fabric together as one piece instead of two separate pieces. Here on the white side is where I decided to lay out my design so I could see it when it was time to mark. So I'm just taking measurements so I could start in the middle with laying out the triangles. Deciding on the triangles, I figured it would be a lot easier to just cut out paper triangles so I could figure out my placement. Thankfully you don't see this on camera, but I did a lot of wriggling around trying to figure out and talking to my daughter about what we wanted to do. I'm using an air-soluble, water-soluble marking pen. If you spritz it with water, it'll fade away once the water dries, and given like about 72 hours, the pen will fade away on its own. So I'm marking all the triangles with the pen first, and then I'm going back and remarking the triangles with a running stitch in a completely separate color. So, because I know it's going to take a while, it's going to take a couple of days to get all this done with my schedule. So I wanted to thread mark all the triangles so that way when the ink disappears, I can still see what I need to do. So I did this on the skirt, just doing a simple running stitch up and around the triangle. Now, this thread will eventually be pulled out before I put the dress together, but it's going to be there just temporary for right now. So here is a close-up of the stitches that I did. Like I said, they were large running stitches. This is only temporary to hold the pieces of fabric together while I did the actual stitching in the thread, and for the more permanent stitching, I should say. So there's my triangles, 1, 2, 3, and the large stitching I used to keep the pieces of fabric together. Those are those big zigzags on the top. Now it's time for the bodice. For the bodice, I did a running stitch across the shoulders and the side seams. That's how I kept the fabric together there. So once I laid the placement of smaller triangles out, I used my ruler to keep all the triangles down, and I just shifted it down so the paper wouldn't fall off. And here I am just showing you a close-up of doing the running stitch. Once again, this is only to hold the two layers of fabric together so that I can work it as one piece of fabric when it's time to put the pieces together to make the dress. So here we are at the skirt section. You can see, I'm trying to get into view, I have a piece of white thread that I tied a knot at the bottom. The knot is in between the layers of fabric, and I'm doing the same running stitch. All it is a simple running stitch with my thread close to the temporary thread that I put there. The stitches are a lot smaller because these are the stitches that are going to be permanent. The blue thread with the big stitches will be pulled out because that was just there for temporarily. So I sped up the video a little bit here because it got kind of boring just seeing me punch a needle in and out of the fabric. But this is what I did for each of the triangles on the skirt and on the bodice. Now the thread that I used was just a double strand of regular white sewing thread, but I ran it through a little thing of beeswax that you can get at Joann's. What the beeswax does, it allows the thread to be strengthened. So I ran it through the beeswax a couple of times and then I ironed it so the beeswax would melt into the thread. At that point it gives it a little extra strength and allows the thread to flow a bit more smoothly through the fabric, and it doesn't get knotted up as much as if you hadn't put it through the thread. The wax. If you didn't run it through the wax, there's more chance of knotting than not knotting. So I'm taking my soluble air water marker again, and I'm marking a line inside the stitching. Oop, that's my alarm there. So I'm marking a line inside my stitching. This is where I'm going to cut out the fabric at. So this is a reversible applique, meaning I'm not adding fabric on top of it, I'm cutting fabric away from it. So once I have all my lines marked, I then separate each layer of fabric and do a small snip in the fabric that I want to cut away. So I want to cut away the teal fabric so that the white fabric will show through. So that's what I'm doing. I'm pulling away the layers, making a small snip in the teal, and now I'm going to cut on the lines that I've drawn so that the white fabric will show through so you can see it. I really like Alabama Shannon and how she does things. She tends to do hers out of 100% cotton, and I know this is not 100% cotton. This teal fabric has polyester in it, and so the thread still slides through the fabric quite easily, so it'll gather up, and you can see on the final dress, if my daughter's not paying attention, it'll slide along the thread and start gathering in the corners of each triangle. So then I have to go back and straighten it out, but it's not a big deal. She doesn't care. She likes the way it looks. So I'm like, whatever floats your boat, girl. But here I am carefully cutting into the corners so that the triangle is nice and that there aren't any snags and there are no, the edges are clean when you cut them. You don't want ragged edges. I mean, unless that's the look you're going for, but I didn't want ragged edges. I wanted clean edges. And I did that for all the rest of the skirt. So I did that for the skirt front, the skirt back, the bodice front, and the bodice back. These are the only techniques that I use. They're super simple, but when you do this on your own, do your best to match up your fabrics. It makes life a little easier. I mean, you don't have to. You can do whatever you want since you're sewing, but I just find that when it comes to something like this, it's easier to have fabric that's very similar together in the makeup of it, the fibers, to do this than not to do this. And you can also then go add beading, you can add more threads. You don't have to do geometric shapes. You could do floral patterns. Whatever it is that you want to do, you can do whatever it is that you want to do. And as you can see, I have my headphones on. I was listening to an audiobook, which is why I'm not talking as I'm doing this, and I'm doing a voiceover because I didn't want to, you know, give up my book. It was interesting. So there we go. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm just going to finish this out. I'm not going to show you how I put this dress together, but I did want to show you these techniques I used in designing this dress, which is unique to my daughter. She really likes it. I'm glad that she really likes it, which means she'll wear it and she won't complain about it when it's time to go to church, which is the biggest part that makes me happy. So anyways, if you have any comments, leave them down below. Any ideas, leave them down below. Any questions, leave them down below. I appreciate you watching this video. Remember to give me some thumbs up if you guys would. Share the video if you want. And always remember to subscribe if you're not. Anyways, you guys take care and I'll see you in the next video.
Dum 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 dum.